everyone. Welcome to our development update for December. I don't know why everyone's not wearing a festive shirt.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know we were supposed to.
No, I saw Maggie this morning and I was like, oh, I should have worn a sweater.
Yeah.
But we do have Ugly Sweater Day is Friday. It's like the National Ugly Sweater Day. So you'll see everybody in one. We're going to post a photo. But I think Sarah's wearing something too. So it'll be like all the hosts are wearing something festive.
I feel so out of place.
Yeah.
But as you can see, we have this beautiful backdrop. If you got to see, we already put out our Day Strider video, which is really awesome. We hope you guys like it. And you get to see the creation process. We've been showing the creation process of a lot of our characters, and we'll have one of our character artists on today to talk a little bit about, that process as well. So without further ado, let's just go over what you can expect today, and of course who everybody is if you're kind of new to our live streams or you haven't watched the Ashes of Creation live stream. And if you haven't, welcome. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode.
Hi, first timers.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome.
So we'll first start off with Steven.
Yes. Hello, I'm Steven. What are we doing? We're doing
introducing yourself.
Oh, I'm Steven. I thought we were doing the studio update. Sorry.
No.
Creative director on Ashes of Creation.
I'm Jeffrey Bard. I am lead game designer.
And I'm Margaret Krohn. I'm your community marketing lead. And today we are going to be going over a studio update with Steven. He'll go over all of that stuff. Then we'll have design, which Jeff will be covering and talking a little bit about some Siege things and whatnot. And then, of course, we have character art, going to be showing off some really cool things that they've been working on and also talking a bit about their process. And then, of course, engineering. Engineering has probably the biggest section. They have so much stuff that they've been working on.
And a really cool video.
A cool video that you all get to see, yes.
Yeah.
And it's MMO related. So, without further ado, I'm just going to do quick updates and then I'll throw it over to Steven to talk about the studio updates. So, Ryman Regal cosmetics are up and available for December, so check that out. They will be available a little longer because of the holiday season. Speaking of which, we have a holiday break, so there's going to be some people who are in and out of the office. We will have some CS support, but probably Christmas Day and Christmas Eve are the 2 days that we won't have support, and New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, right? I think those are the 4 days that we won't have CS support.
I'll be trolling on the Zendesk during those days.
Oh no.
So if you want to put in a ticket, make sure to do it on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day.
No,
look what you've done, Steve.
I know,
He's not really, because John is not going to let you do that. And then, of course, we do have a creative director's letter that Steven is going to be working finalizing over the Christmas holiday break, and then we'll be providing to you
And
all.
a cool little video for that.
Yeah.
Right?
Steven's going to do a little video.
Dude.
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
That is for Christmas Day. So on Christmas Day, we will have a video that's coming out. We'll also have a little short social blurb with it, but then the full video will be on our YouTube channel. And then also on Christmas Eve, we'll have a video for you all. So we have some stuff planned. Hopefully it all goes out, automatically. So
yes, there will be no problem.
I don't have to monitor it too much, but I will have to post it in Discord. So I'll be around. I'll be watching you guys.
Just like Santa.
Yeah, just like Santa. I'll be checking if you're naughty or nice. So first and foremost, let's throw it over to Steven to talk about the studio update.
Yes, so everything is going splendidly. We have a test actually coming up on this Thursday at 1 o'clock. Some PI testers are going to be jumping into Siege with our internal QA for the Siege build that we have. So we're really excited about that. We've been doing some internal play testing with the Siege client, and it's a lot of fun. It's very cool, actually. Kind of seeing, all the siege weapons working and the walls getting destroyed and people capturing the relic. It's been interesting.
We've had some interesting bugs too.
We've had definitely some interesting bugs. That can happen. But going into the new year, we have a whole new hiring phase that's going to be beginning starting in middle of January, I believe, that we're going to be posting a lot of new positions at the studios. So
we'll probably post that on our social media too, so you can help share the love and get people to come
apply. Yes. Spread the word to all through all your social medias. Say Intrepid's hiring. Have you heard of Ashes? So yeah, we're very excited about that, bringing on new team members. Also, additionally, we're looking forward to first quarter of next year. There's a lot of fun stuff that we have planned for that quarter. We have some announcements that are going to be happening as well next year, early part of that year. So look forward to those. But yeah, everything's going pretty good.
Yeah, 2020 is going to be a good year for us.
2020 is going to be a very good year.
Yes, we have a lot of amazing things that we have in the works, and of course we're hitting milestones. We not only have the external milestones that you're aware of, obviously with Siege and the MMO for Alpha 1, but we also have internal milestones of like little pieces here and there that we're trying to accomplish. So it's been exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on to our next segment, which will be design, talking about all the things that they're doing.
Hi, guys. Like Steven said, we have been doing a lot of work on Siege recently, trying to get that packed up and squared away. One of the biggest things that we are working on is sort of the balance side of things, making sure that each phase of the battle kind of has the flow that we're expecting, that, attacking the walls doesn't take too long, but also isn't too short, that people can't rush the reliquary right away. We had a couple of interesting matches where, the reliquary was capped in the first 5 minutes, and that was unexpected, but also one of the great things about testing.
Well, we've also had sometimes where we couldn't capture the relic.
That too.
Until where the last 30 seconds, and I captured it. And everyone's like, how did that happen?
How did that happen? It was broken. It wasn't supposed to work.
I fixed it.
By hitting it really hard, I'm sure.
No.
So that's been a big focus of ours. An interesting thing that we've been kind of learning a lot about are vehicles. All the different siege weapons that we have are considered vehicles. And there's a lot of interesting challenges involving those. I think engineering is going to talk a little bit about that some more. But, in terms of getting our caravans working and the kind of bigger systems that involve, ships, will kind of use a similar system. Learning as much as we have with the siege weapons has been really useful for us. So we've learned a lot of lessons with that going forward. I think we'll be able to get our caravans on lockdown real quick here. Based on that.
It's not only just thinking about it as a vehicle, but also thinking about the environment that the vehicle's on.
Right.
So I was watching definitely you guys trying to fit them in spaces like up stairways and all kinds of ramps.
Trying to make sure that the physics of the machine fits the environment that we are putting it in, right? One of the first things we did when we found we put the siege weapons in was we had too many trees. It was pretty difficult to navigate through the map with as thick of an overgrowth that we had. So we had to move a lot of that stuff out and make sure that there was enough big open spaces for these siege weapons to maneuver.
But then you still want enough trees for coverage, right?
Right. So you want trees for cover. You want to make sure that there's not just, a kill field right there in the front. You want the attackers.
Sometimes you're running and explosions are happening around you, and it's horrifying.
It is. It's pretty cool. It's actually the amount of chaos, even with the smaller playtests that we have in the studio, is pretty impressive. So, once we start amping up the number of people we have in these tests, like with the PI, I think it's going to be a really exciting mode.
Yeah, and we're hoping that we'll be able to show some more footage of that later down the line. There's some bugs that we want to be able to resolve before we show that externally.
We really need to get to a couple more polish passes before we'll be able to do that.
And not only that, but I think you all have been working on the classes and making sure that those things are balanced too. I don't know if you can talk a little bit about that, because I know that's definitely something the community...
that's a big part of it. We want to make sure that each role has a niche that they fill in this battle, and that a balanced party is kind of where people want to put their whole party in. When it comes to the tank, making sure the tank is not so tanky. There was a phase where the tank was kind of OP. He was doing way too much damage, and also it could soak so much. Yeah, it was really hard to kill the tank. And then making sure that all of the mage abilities are useful and they feel like they have, it's not just a DPS thing, a DPS thing, a DPS thing, but they're actually doing interesting things and changing the sort of overall battle based on what the abilities they're using.
And especially because they are a little bit more squishier than some of the other classes.
They're very squishy.
And this is the first time we're going to really showcase healing in a sense of like a player healing rather than chugging a potion.
Right. So every player starts with a potion, but then we also have the cleric class.
Some don't have healing potions. They have like mana potions. Yeah.
So the healer is a really fun class. They are not just a support role. They can do some DPS. They use a scepter. The scepter has an alt fire capability to heal armor when they're shooting people. So that's always a lot of fun. Then they have, this pretty massive AoE res that can bring a bunch of people back and really shift the tide of battle. So it's been a lot of fun playing with that. Not having a class like that, not having classes in the BR, it was fun, but having the classes really kind of brings the character out. It feels like you have a real role that you're playing with in this mode. So
especially when you're playing with other people and working together to accomplish a goal, which is really neat.
It's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
So I know we do have a ton of questions towards the end here that the community has proposed. So hopefully we'll be able to answer.
We will definitely get to those.
So without further ado, did you want to talk a little bit about MMO stuff? I know we talked about.
Yeah. So sorry, I thought I was leaving.
No, I was looking down the list.
So on the MMO side, we've kind of gotten most of our systems locked down to a point where engineering is actually creating tools for us. So we've been defining a lot of the requirements we have for tools. So while Unreal has a lot of capability in and of itself, right, we can, as designers, just go in and do stuff. Having tools makes our workload a lot lighter. So, something that, like, on average, I'll give you, like, to do an ability might take 5 days, right? But if we have good tools, that ability might take 3 days. So saving 2 days on one ability doesn't sound like a lot, but over hundreds of abilities, all of a sudden that's a really significant time savings in terms of manpower and the amount of work we actually have to do to get it. So defining these tools and handing them over to engineering for them to work on has been a big part of what we're doing right now. And that's kind of sort of the final thing until we start making our big content push for Alpha 1, which is exciting.
And we do have content being created too. I know that, Sam, for instance, we had her on our 20 Extra Life 24-hour stream. She's nervous to be on the stream here, but I think that she's been working on a lot of lore.
Yeah, she's been working on
stories
getting sort of the backstories and the sort of groundwork done for what we're going to do with our quest system and the kinds of things that we can pull from for our stories. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
She even walked me through like a couple quest line things, and it's really neat. So you have a lot of options, even though it is semi-linear to some extent, right? Yeah. Which is cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it. I'll be seeing you guys real soon.
Yeah.
Yay.
Sweet. All right, thank you. We're going to be moving on over to character art with Chris Atkins. So first let him introduce himself, and then we'll talk a little bit about what the character art team's been up to. Oh yeah. While we're waiting, Jeff found out there's like a bunch of like sweater pieces in his water.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Yeah,
I did not get in the water. But yeah, hey, how are you guys?
How are you doing, Chris?
Good to see everybody. Yeah,
hello.
I'm Chris Atkins. I'm the lead character artist for anyone that doesn't know. But yeah, I was here a couple weeks ago, so I feel like everyone's seen me.
Yeah.
Me.
So we are going to show off some of the cool character art that you've been working on, but I know that we've had a question from the community. There's been a few people who have asked this, not only just on Reddit, but within our forums and things of that sort. We have been showing off a lot of creation videos of characters, and I guess they're curious more about the process and how long kind of those processes take, and I don't know if you can walk us through a little bit.
Yeah, really, they kind of vary. I would say like on
depends on how easy.
On like a low end, it's probably, I mean, we have some really fast artists here anyway, but low end is probably like a 12 to 15 day for an NPC. And that's from, having Jeff or Ryan start with a concept, usually design, Steven, someone feeds an idea of what they would like to see. We have concept sort of flush out, a decent piece. Doesn't have to be a full turnaround, just like a look and feel. And then, one of the 3D artists basically takes it from there. And that's when you start to see, like our time-lapse videos that we show where you just see that gray ball and it just starts peeling out into all kinds of shapes. And that's really where it starts. So then once we get that sculpt going, we have to re-topologize that mesh again, which is build it in a low-res version for in-game. Then we UV it, then we paint it, and then rig, skeleton. There's probably like 12 steps.
Yeah, and we've shown off the modeling process in a previous Dev Diaries, and which I think we used weapons for example of that, but that's one of the examples.
Yeah. And
then we've also shown off the animation process with Brad, who you've seen on here before. And we've really hopefully walked you through those processes of the development, and now we're kind of showcasing all of those things. And what these help you do too is create some of the creatures that are based on these base models, right? So you're able to create, that means you're able to create new creatures faster, right?
Yeah, everything this whole process, especially building an MMO, just becomes exponentially faster. Like as we get more pieces, we are able to throw more things together. More unified skeletons mean, great, now we don't have to build a full rig and have an anim do it. Like we have 38 anims for, that Day Strider. If we want to make some variant now, all we have to do is sort of live within the confines of that skeleton, and we can put out an NPC in probably a third of the time
Yeah.
of the first one.
And we also have, I think there's a Moonstrider or something like that.
Yeah,
that
one.
That's a more hairy version of
Yes.
that. And that means that one is going to be a lot faster to
Oh,
create.
definitely.
And then you can also use the base animations
Yeah.
for the Daystrider and then swap it out.
Yeah, and then you just throw Jinxie on it. It's like a day
Yeah,
and a half
Jinxie's
later, there's a
amazing.
full model. It's great.
Yeah.
I like that the Moonstrider is a more hairy version of the Daystrider.
It is.
It's like, and it has a smaller snout too, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's like a kind of a camel neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
They're
like,
fun, though.
It's using that base
Right,
model
it
and
is.
then
It
altering.
does
I was just
totally.
trying
Yes.
to like
No,
give
I
an
know, yeah.
example.
No, it is. Yeah,
Trying
and
to give
like
an
all
example.
those long nose bones. Yeah, we'll just drop those off, basically. you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, so hopefully that gave you your answer. I know there was like a lot of assumptions going on around the internets about how that works and what this means and why we're creating so many. But I think what we need to explain to you too is that the world, you wouldn't have NPCs to quest after or to kill.
Yeah.
Don't kill them.
Yeah, you have to kill them,
And you know,
or ride,
or
yeah.
like or interact with in the world if we didn't fill it up with stuff. So I think one of the main things that we're trying to do is make the world feel really filled up. And
Totally.
lovely.
Yeah, and we've sort of been attacking creatures and like we're now, you know, we have aquatic ones. We're just kind of going around the horn trying to fill out every sort of biome with different kinds
and
of
our
creatures.
team is working on crazy biomes that are just
Yeah, the environment team is
they're just amazing.
Yeah.
And we've been showing some of those too. So if you're really watching the videos, you get to see a little glimpse into some of the different sceneries that we've been putting out. And also maybe you might get a sneak peek of buildings or, you know, fauna or whatnot that's in the world. So definitely keep your eyes peeled when you're watching this.
I mean, the important thing about, you know, these creation videos really goes to show you guys just the scope of variables that we have between the creatures, right? I mean, that animal husbandry system, as I know, character team is excited. Just
I'm very excited. I'm very excited. I just lock up and sweat every time. I'm like, yeah. No, I'm excited. It's gonna be great.
It's a crazy
But there's a lot of
of
content, you know, on the creature side, on the character side, on the armor side that's in the game, and you know, as Chris was saying, you know, each step incrementally decreases the production time as we move forward, establishing those, you know, across the board skeletons and rigs, and you know, confining the new creation stuff to within those kind of mega categories.
Yeah,
and I think you make a great point with the different skeletons and bases of those skeletons. One of the things that we got questions about was the cosmetics. One of the things that we're doing is following in line with those skeletons.
Absolutely.
So what you're going to notice is a lot of those do kind of have similar bases, but then we have like little alterations that are going to be incorporated in them. So they won't take as much time to create.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's been our goal.
And we're trying to be really thoughtful about the things we create right now.
We're like,
how much we can get out
more
of it.
This type of thing in this world, so let's create a theme that kind of fits that.
Yeah,
type of things.
I'd say the whole project, the whole team, the whole company's gotten a lot better at that too.
Yeah.
We're really focused on reusability.
So hopefully that answers those questions. So moving forward, let's check out the stuff. So we have a new thing that we haven't shown off, which is this new dragon pet, and I think this is something Keith was working on.
Keith
correct?
was working on it. He started it a long time ago and then sort of put it down and restarted recently because we were kind of getting to this skeleton shape and we're working on pets and things like that.
So this will be a little pet.
Well, this
I want
is
him to
the
like
pseudo.
sit on your shoulder.
This is the pseudo dragon.
This is the pseudo dragon.
This is the pseudo dragon from Kickstarter.
Yep.
So those of you who own this little dude, he's going to be flying around near your head as you walk around in the world.
Yeah.
Just
These things are awesome. Yeah, we have the Fae Beast, basically the first one sort of working off that skeleton.
And you'll get to see
It's
that
gonna be
Fae
awesome.
Beast on Christmas, so stay tuned.
Oh, that's
you
true.
don't get to see it. Sorry, I'm not trying to spoil
No,
your
it's
good
okay,
stuff.
it's
All right.
okay.
Somebody
Give a little teaser
somebody
of it.
said Dracarys.
It is, yeah, very much.
It does kind of give you those vibes, but we had that out. I don't know if we had that out around, I don't know what year you guys put that out.
2017, yeah, it was out there.
Yeah, Keith had just done that Elder Dragon, and then he was still on that Dragon King.
The
And he's
Elder-
like, "Oh, I'll
the
get
Elder
another one
Dragon
going." Yeah, they're great.
It's so amazing.
Yeah, Keith's
People
very
loved it.
talented.
And then, of course, moving from there, we have the Mantle of the Silver Temple, which is a headpiece that you can wear.
Yes. Yeah, I was doing some scheduling and some other stuff, and then I just grabbed this. You know, we have a nice backlog of items, so whenever I feel like, oh my god, I could take a break from something organic and do something more, you know, weapon or armor related, I just do a quick task.
Yeah, I just quickly make
I
these
just
things.
quickly
It's,
get that out
no
of the
problem.
way. Yeah, well, creatures take forever, but yeah, this one was really fun, and I've kind of seen this concept floating around for a while.
Yeah, so
like,
this was the concept, and I think the other one was the final.
yeah, the other one was the final piece. I think I got pretty close.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
you're
the
very
final.
close.
That's the in-game asset. So I think I got it right on for the most part.
It's really good.
Yeah, I've been looking at this one for a while, and I just had a couple days where it's in between stuff, like bigger tasks.
I don't know if
was
Steven
like,
wants to give a little
grab
insight
that.
into the lore of these types of things. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these types of headdresses oftentimes, demonstrate a position and or lineage that the character, or backstory for the character, kind of where they came from, what inherited pieces they received from their family, the type of accolades they may have received in, participating in certain groups and or militaries in the past. This particular follows the lineage of worshippers, kind of the moon and the stars, a more celestial oriented type of backstory. So, it's cool to see these types of headpieces not just constrained to what we typically see helmets are on the head per se, but rather this one kind of has that
Like
kind
that,
of magical
like,
feeling where it's
yeah.
floating behind your head. I think it's a really cool silhouette even to see behind a character, and it's unique in that sense. That you don't really often see in other games.
and you get to keep your hair.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Yeah,
if
that's
you have a
great.
hairstyle you really like, then you don't have to like cover it.
Yeah, and I spruced up the back a little because when I originally made it, I was running around. I'm like, oh yeah, you never see the front. I'm like, I better make the back a little more interesting.
Well, you will when you're turning your character
Yeah,
into
yeah.
Well, but yeah.
Listen, it's important when
Most
everyone
of the
else
time you're
sees.
running.
Everyone else
Yeah,
sees
yeah.
it though. They know.
Now, one of the cool things that I was thinking about for this particular piece, this was one of the accessory items that we had in one of our months, I think,
Yeah,
a
we
year
had
ago
lore
or
in
so.
it. It was
But-
this year.
Oh, is this year? Okay.
I think so. I remember
but
seeing
this,
it. It was a year ago.
one thing that might be cool with regards to this, and we'll see if we can get this working, which I think we can. But when your character does, a cast or an ability or something, to have that moon piece actually light up or glow.
Oh yeah, I
Ooh,
want to
that
get
would be
Jim.
cool.
We need effects pass.
Oh
On this.
yeah, absolutely.
That would be
So
really
that
cool.
way, this is not just a static, cosmetic piece on the body, but rather kind of dynamic
A
in
part
what
of
you're
you,
doing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That would take a lot more, but
Mhm.
it would be really cool. And then, of course, we have the Dune Wing Falcon. So we have many creatures who have multiple wings.
Yes.
Which is going to be
Yes.
interesting. I'm sorry.
Yes.
But now you're going to kind of get to see how this one. So this is the model process first of seeing how this creature looks with this double set of wings that we have.
Yeah, and this is the high poly sculpt that I was talking about earlier. Jincy did this, so that I think that's probably around 14 to 20 million polygons for that
Jeez.
bird. Obviously a game engine can't handle that, so she reduced it to around 10,000
I was gonna say
from
holy-
20 million. Yeah, now you
holy
can see how it comes out though. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
look how gorgeous that is.
And it's another one where she's taken this from concept through modeling. She rigged it. She's animating it. So this
That's
is a
so
full piece of hers again, like the Daystrider.
Jinxie's amazing.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, you don't find a lot of artists that can animate
I mean,
as well.
the cool thing about just to give everybody context, and I know we might have said this in the past, but the cool thing about going through the production line of these creatures and cosmetics from our what we call our promise list, which is basically rewards from Kickstarter or the monthly cosmetics, is they all fit within the master category of content that we're creating for the game, right? And we utilize those creatures and cosmetics to kind of set the tone for the varying cosmetics and creatures that we intend to have that are in the game that are a part of that production line. But here you can get a glimpse of just of the quality of art that's going to be in the game. I know MMORPGs in general have had, a period of time where, we're playing a lot of older games that came out 10 plus years ago.
I've worked on them.
Right.
Yeah.
But just to see the quality, that Ashes is going to debut, I'm really excited about, because I know, game mechanics are really where the central point of, the gameplay is, but it's really nice to have accompanying great game mechanics is great art. And the team here at Intrepid makes really great art, and it's going to make a very immersive quality to the actual MMORPG, so that you can really get into the world you're a part of.
Yeah. And we also can use these as create variants from these that are also in the
Totally.
world.
And we're going to make a ton of regular 2-wing bird creatures from the same skeleton setup
Yeah.
and animation setup. So again, this will save time on owls, hawks, anything moving forward. We don't have to use all
And
4
I
wings.
think we have a video of this guy
Yeah,
in game, don't we?
we have two videos.
Oh, nice.
So this is the first video. So we'll let that play and we can talk over it. But
so here you can see the actual person's flying the character.
this is more like a monster coin style.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, as you guys know, we do have a monster coin system. So a lot of times when we show the models in the game per se, we kind of inhabit the model and show off. Doesn't necessarily mean you can become this model, but that's the perspective you'll see.
Allows us to make videos. And this is, I think, just Jinsey quickly.
Yeah, and a lot of the
animals
animals she's been focusing on right now are for the pet system part of it. And now she's actually starting in on the whole NPC path so it can attack and take damage and dodge and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that little lag was because it started looping the video. So if we can go to the next video, there we go.
And here's just to give you perspective, to the size and ratio of the model itself to a character, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for this particular cosmetic pet, this guy's not going to have obviously any in-game relevance with regards to mechanics and or combat. Rather, we don't sell the pay-to-win aspect in anything that we do. So instead, he kind of just flies around and hangs around with you, and there'll be a little bit of interaction that's available, perhaps, where, the pets will be able to do something with your character. And the animation team's great on coming up with stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love seeing these too, just because it's like it brings that magical
You just gotta tell her to zoom in a little bit more.
Yeah, I know. She wanted to really sell that it was this thing.
Yeah, it's cute. But yeah, so that's kind of like the stuff that you guys were wanting to show off. And if you've seen some of our previous live streams, we've actually shown some of the progression of things. I think, for instance, like the troll character.
Oh, definitely.
You got to see that from the beginning until when it was like final and animations for it.
Tau 684 said, "Can we fly our pet, embody the pet, and capture someone else's weapon?" And immediately when he said that, I was thinking of like the Battlefield like rovers that you send out.
Oh, yeah.
RPC rovers, and you blow them up a drone. You could do that with the pet. That'd be so great.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. Thanks for the comment. Another 6 months of development. We'll get it. No,
Scope creep.
No, maybe if it was a robot one, I wouldn't want to blow up a cute little bird.
No, you just like inhabit its soul. Its eyes turn like blue, and now you're a part of it, and you can just fly. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, maybe for like a druidy or shaman.
Heck yeah.
We need to talk to engineering.
Okay.
That's always my out every time. I'm like, hold on, we need to talk to engineering.
That's a good segue because what's next? Our engineering team is going to be represented by Kevin Mcpherson, who will be joining us. Thank you so much. Chris.
Yeah, thank you guys very much.
We really appreciate you.
Thanks,
joining
Chris.
us.
No, thank you. That was a great time. Thank you.
All right. McP has a long list. He gave me a very long list of things.
Welcome, McP.
Thank
you doing?
How you doing, buddy?
So great.
How are things? Did you recover finally from our 24-hour live stream?
I did.
You know what? McP is one of the only other people who stayed up the entire time. It was Ian, McP, me, and...
Dude, McP was a trooper. Not only did he GM for 24 hours straight, but he also ate an entire can of cat food.
Why'd you do that?
Well, John actually.
John ate
John was in there, right?
Oh yeah,
He
John had a
big chunk.
spoon.
You didn't have to do it.
Right. Didn't know.
Was
Didn't
there
have
like
to
little
do it.
pieces of bone and stuff you said or something? Or
No,
what
it was just
hair.
It was salmon.
There was hair in
Yeah,
there.
it
There's
was.
no hair
I didn't
there
know
was
salmon
hair.
had hair.
It doesn't have hair.
We also
There's
did
no hair.
the
It was rice.
What were the evil jelly beans? The puke flavor.
Oh,
and
yeah, those
the one
jelly,
was dog food. The dog food one was pretty rough.
It's disgusting.
But
The dog food one's, I think, the worst because it just stays in your mouth and lingers.
it was washed away with ales.
That was a lot of fun, by the way. I really enjoyed that.
It was fun.
So first and foremost, explain to people who maybe are new and are just tuning into Ashes of Creation what you do on our team.
So coders generally work in a glorified text editor, and we write code, and then that's compiled into machine code, and that's what runs the game. So we're really, our job is to glue everything together so that the design and the art
and the design work together. Yeah.
right function and give you the game sim. So a big part of what I do and what the coding team does is try and be a force multiplier for art and design. So we try and write tools and systems that allow them to put out the maximum amount of content in the shortest amount of time and make it as pretty and performant as possible.
I feel like you need a little halo, and if you like light shine down on you.
Dangerously good.
So let's first talk about the first thing on your list, which is leaderboards and where you guys are at with that.
Yeah, so we're just ending essentially the implementation of leaderboards. So that's going to be ready to turn on in the near future.
I think it already got put up with the last update we have. We just need to flip the switch.
I think
right?
it's the back end so that we can grab data
yeah.
to make sure that it's working properly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually feeding data, and it's nice to have that because that's a great measure of success. Obviously, in the MMO, it has great utility so that you can see
like your guild stats and
exactly
right. And
am I the top crafter? Am I the top harvester?
Yes. So all of that kind of queries a database and collects that information. That's the first implementation of it in APOC, but it will eventually that code will be used for. The MMORPG and all the varying representations that we have of success in that game. Arenas, crafting, like you said, dungeons, fastest time, most kills, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and for people like you and I, PvP.
Yes.
Like how many am I a top PvPer?
See, now you said that, though, and all of the PvEers in our community are going to say, see, Steven's a PvPer. It's a PvP game.
It's not a PvP game.
There are people who like PvE, and so raiding and dungeons and things of
That's
that
right.
sort.
There's that too, right?
How quickly you can do dungeons.
We want everybody to come and play it.
I do love PvP.
So moving on to the next thing, which is continue work on Siege and where you guys are with that.
Yeah, Siege is coming along really well. We're mostly in the polishing and bug fixing phase. So we had some pretty interesting bugs where people would get out of a Siege weapon and be tilted 45 degrees floating in the air.
That was great.
So,
that was cool, actually.
Good local transform
almost
problems.
a feature.
Yeah. It's sometimes in games you get some pretty cool bugs. People falling through the world to their death, all kinds of good stuff. But it's looking really good now because we're in that polish phase and just needs additional play testing.
The worst one for me was when no one's name was showing up.
Right.
So you didn't know who your
friend or foe.
I'm just
right.
like, I hate you. Okay. Don't take damage. You're my friend.
Right.
Keep going.
That's the best one. It's a guessing game.
Yeah, it's rough.
Just makes it hard when you're like around a capture point and you're both like trying to murder each other.
Exactly.
And then of course you have capture point polish that you're working on.
Yep.
What is entailed in that?
So we have to make sure that we support all the design for the captures and that it's smooth and predictable. So when you have people gathered, right, it's capturing in the way that you would expect. We've had some glitches with that, so just working through those parts.
I mean, even ties in with like the mini map and UI, right? So like being able to see how quick, like where the progress is of those captures.
And then also getting updates like,
the pop on screen.
The relic is being casted on.
Exactly. So that your team or your team leader can adjust strategy to that.
Or the respawn bug that's just up there on the screen.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I think it's fixed though. Just gonna call.
That's fine.
So you guys have they've been working really hard on that. I know obviously design is involved in that process. He talked a little bit about it before. So it's art. I mean, obviously they're working on animations that tie into the things that you guys are working on as well. So it's coming, it's getting there. We just have like a little bit of more polishing stages that we'd like to get to. And I think this week's test with our PI members is going to help us a lot because we just need more bodies in there to help us test some of the little processes. I don't know if you can talk a little bit about maybe what having a few more people in there is going to help us accomplish and what data you guys are looking at.
Right. So for us, it's always in the engineering team. It's about scaling and performance. So Siege is going to be a higher player count for us, so concentrated in a smaller place. So for us, we're going to be looking at optimizing and profiling performance on the client, and then also the server based on those PI play tests. So it's really critical for us.
Now we had a milestone, I think, even recently that they provided a video for that we can show off. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Tying it right into how this affects the MMO and the fact that castle sieges in the MMO or even just sieges upon a metropolis is going to be massive and incorporate so many people who are the citizens or allies of these citizens that are coming to fight upon the lands. So we kind of wanted to show off a little video that you guys have been working on, and then you can talk a little bit.
Is this the first engineering video we've shown?
It's probably.
I think so. Yeah.
So unless you guys want to see text, it's not that exciting.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and show it.
So what are we seeing here?
So here's one of our tests on how many NPCs and entities in general that we can have functioning in a localized space running, pathing, and navigating around arbitrary terrain. So in this case, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of entities.
5,000 simulated players in this test.
Yeah.
It looks like little red ants, and it horrifies me a little bit.
Right, and some of those are actually, you can see them are kind of like going out of view distance in the distance. So this level here, actually has.
How big is this space? I don't know if you guys can.
That one's about 4 square kilometers. That particular terrain chunk.
Yeah, and why is this important for what we're trying to accomplish for the MMORPG?
Well, so as we just went over, there's going to be massive battles in Ashes. So we're talking about hundreds of participants going against each other. It could be on a caravan raid or guarding a caravan. It could be on a naval flotilla if you're trying to move goods across the water. And then we have the idea that one can siege not only castles but nodes. So the cities themselves.
Right.
And those battles are going to involve hundreds of people. So being able to be performant with all of those people in one place is critical.
Right.
So that's the technology that we're working on, is being able to scale up the number of entities that we can put in one place. Also plays into the NPCs that we can support. So
Right.
when you're on a raid, we can flood the raid with hordes of NPCs that you have to wade through.
Absolutely.
And that's really compelling from a player perspective of having to deal with that.
Now, I know a lot of players are looking at this and thinking, holy crap, how's my PC going to render 5,000 different NPCs?
Right.
Now, obviously, this video doesn't showcase the fact that we will be having some culling logic, and you'll be rendering only the pertinent and important NPCs and or players around you. So don't think you have to, your potato can't play the game. There's going to be aggressive optimization to allow for those large battles to be rendered on players' clients. But additionally, on top of that, you saw there kind of a character dummy, right? And one of the features that we intend to have for these types of large battles, as we've said in the past, is a default player appearance that can, player can set when they know they're going into a large battle, and that can reduce the, basically the load on their computer when rendering all these other players and their, unique costumes.
And you've probably seen that in some other games. Other games sometimes have like a Control F so that you can remove all the other NPCs other than you and the monster, or your party. So things like that. We'll be working on some ideas of how to make it so that when you are in those situations where there are a lot of players, that you can still have a functioning game experience.
That's right.
For sure.
And Unreal is very good about scaling as well. The way that we are able to set up parameters in the engine and have it scale based on the user's system is it's really nice out of the box. And then of course we write custom optimizations and we change Unreal Engine to accommodate our own specific needs as well.
And now this doesn't have like a lot of trees or things of that sort, so it's just a very flat terrain.
It is.
And how is that going to affect things once there's other environmental pieces that are going to be in the world as well?
So on the navigation graph, trees and everything will sort of poke holes in that, and then the NPCs will not traverse through the trees. So it works pretty well out of the box. Also, it can be dynamically affected. So if you have a boss mob that's sort of a big ogre, as it walks around, it's sort of cutting a hole in that nav mesh so other entities don't want to run through it.
They don't want to get squished.
They don't want to get squished.
And you'll
That
see,
can be fun, though.
You'll see some of these, some of the simulated clients are kind of grouping up together during the video. That's because we do have collision on, and they're hitting each other and whatnot.
That's right.
I noticed there was a question, what about like effects and cosmetic pets and whatnot? As part of that culling algorithm will obviously be some provisions for special effects and what's important to you.
That's right.
Additionally, the default player appearance will remove any non-combat oriented or mechanic oriented cosmetics such as cosmetic pets.
Yes.
And we're already optimizing a lot of our effects anyways too, right?
Right.
Like our particle effects as we're creating them, because we've definitely had some that have caused trouble.
Oh, yeah. No, we had some effects that were, thousands upon thousands of particles, and while beautiful, they weren't performant. And there's a certain level that you get to with an effect where you're not really getting more mileage, more bang for your buck once you go over a certain particle count. So.
And even though we're showing this video of 5,000 simulated player, that's obviously not our intent. when it comes to these types of large battles. We're targeting more around 1,000 players particularly, but obviously when we're doing these types of things, we go above and beyond that to kind of see where the limits are, where they take us, right?
Yes, and also going beyond our limits allows us to profile more aggressively because we see the spikes and the hits in performance. They're readily apparent. So the more that we scale up, the better, and that's why testing with our Phoenix Initiative players is also critical for us.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to, because we still have like 12 more other topics on to go over. So let's talk a little bit about the additional support that you guys are providing for the classes and abilities.
Sure. So in the context of Siege.
Or MMO.
No, I think really towards Alpha 1,
yeah.
Previously design has had to kind of brute force a lot of those ability creations.
And what are we doing to be a force multiplier for them?
Yeah.
So one thing they were doing is they were authoring like helper actors that they would spawn to sort of be a data store. But that takes time. They have to set up a blueprint and the logic and the variables within that. And it's also not great because spawning actors in Unreal it's not free. It's something that replicates. So it's a network hit and a server performance hit. So we're putting in like a scratch pad so they can just store variables on the caster and then refer to that, and that hopefully will speed them up. A lot of their work in creating these abilities, whether it's a fireball or a blink spell or invisibility, is done in the manifestation of the coolness factor of it, right?
Yeah, really
so whatever we can do to give them tools to accelerate that and give them visual feedback speeds up the process, so that if, like Jeff was saying, if we can take an ability creation from 5 days to 3 days, and there's hundreds of these to be created, that's substantial.
Now this is taking into account, Alpha 1, we do not have the intent to provide our augment system. Instead, it's just going to be the straight base archetypes that are going to be represented with the base active skills.
That's right.
But this the new ability system that engineering is providing design, it takes into account how these skills are compartmentalized into a component system and can be swapped and matched out to have rapid development and iteration of these abilities, and include the riders that will be indicative of augment system to those types of skills.
Yeah, so the componentized ability system will allow them to sort of drag and drop qualities or ability effects onto a parent ability. And that's going to be a lot faster for them than what they have now is sort of a wall of text data where they're putting in properties and things into the ability. That's going to be pulled out. It's going to go into a database where they can make changes rapidly, and the actual Unreal tool will be much more drag and drop. And that goes for all the tools. So even the spawners in the world right now, they don't get a visual representation of what would spawn there. So we're going to provide that as a preview when they.
And that's super important as we enter alphas and betas, because part of that iterative process is being able to iterate rapidly.
Exactly. Right.
And that really touches on the speed at which design can iterate.
Yeah. So in all the MMOs I've worked on, engineering is usually the front loaded. A lot of work needs to be done. But then once those systems are written, it's really creating the content that kills you, right? That's a lot of time to create a vast, living, breathing world.
Absolutely.
So it's
Especially
really
when it keeps changing and altering.
correct, and so it's really up to the engineering team to make sure that we can assist design and art in the creation of this content, so that it can be done rapidly.
Right. And then, of course, moving on, because you do have a lot to go over, you guys have started on the status effect systems and like stacking rolls and things of that sort for like crafting and whatnot.
Exactly. So one of the things we are getting to now is putting certain effects on a character or an NPC, such as poisoned or stunned or dizzy, etc., and then providing code support for the stacking rolls that design needs, so that we, if you have a higher level effect on you and you get a lower level effect, it's not going to stick, right? Or you get somebody recasts the same effect, then it reinitializes sort of the time that effect stays on your character.
I see. So they don't stack on top of each other; it just restarts the timer.
Yes.
Or the rounds or whatever.
Yeah, that's pretty critical. If you have an ability system in an MMO, you need
right.
this.
And those types of stacking effects also include diminishing returns on
Yes.
CCs and whatnot. Yeah,
That's right. So the first snare will definitely slow you down 100%, but
Right.
each consecutive one over some delta time as defined would diminish.
And then also how that affects when someone hits you, right? Like some of those things will break or slowly
Exactly.
diminish, right?
Yes.
Or have chance to. Because the chance to proc or chance to do something is also a whole other realm of stuff.
Exactly, and we just actually put in weapon procs this week, which is awesome. So design will be able to set up those.
and that plays towards the combo system, and how it's constructed for Alpha 1. That players can, add effects that proc based on a passive hit rate and percentage chance during that combo system. Yeah.
And then the next topic that we're going to kind of go over is that you guys are continuing your work on the arts node tool, layout tool, or that system.
Wait
and
until that video comes out.
and we are going to have dev diaries that will cover that, which is like a whole. You guys have seen the micro aspect of it, which is like the building tool and how the buildings will lay out in a single node. But now it is the much larger scale of how all those nodes are interacting with each other. And
Yes.
whatnot.
So it's critical that we continue work on this tool in the editor that allows not just the environment team, but also the designers to construct sort of the layout for these nodes. And it is dynamic. So when a node levels up or de-levels, it's going to have a different footprint than any other node. So it's going to be unique.
And previously, as we've demonstrated back in Alpha 0 over, oh my gosh, is it a year ago? When is it? 2 years ago. Almost 2 years ago we had Alpha 0. Wow.
Yeah.
So, about 2 years ago we had nodes in Alpha 0, and they would collect experience, and they would represent the culture of the experience. That was the primary benefactor in leveling up. They'd go up to stage 3. That was all, those templates were manually constructed by the environment artists to kind of represent that node thresholding, leveling up. What we've done now is, because obviously that's not sustainable to do manually for the vast size that the world of Vera is, even coming up on, Alpha 1, where we're going to see around 25% of that world playable. There's over 100 nodes that are present in the world, and they all have to be unique. They have to look different. They can't be a cookie cutter kind of demonstration of each stage, because that just wouldn't be in alignment with the immersive nature of the game we're creating, right? So instead, our environment team had come up with a way to approach that through kind of a hex procedural system that defines within each hex of the grid layout for a particular node, random placeholder spots for where buildings are going to pop up and how that shape is going to look. So now we're capable of actually procedurally generating a wide variety within a confined parameter, a wide variety of different representations of all of the nodes from all of the cultures to populate the entire world. So you'll see vastly different node compositions as they level up throughout the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It'll be a fun experience for all of us.
And there will be a video on that later demonstrating the tech and how that's constructed.
Yeah, I think we have shown some of that tech. So definitely go look at the previous dev diaries because we've shown some of it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, continued work on additional quest and quest objective types. So we do have quests, and we have quite a few in the world, but there are different types of quests that we would like to accomplish that we didn't have support for before.
Exactly.
So you're creating that support.
Yes. So whatever,
it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, whatever design needs as far as more objective variants. We do have timed quests, timed objectives, but there's going to be a host of other specialized objectives that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've talked about the optimization of improving our spawner mechanics, which you've talked about already.
Yes.
And then the next thing you wanted to talk about was with the guild system and the work that you guys are starting on that.
Yeah, so obviously guilds are critical to MMOs and certainly to Ashes. And the guild system that we're putting together takes into account all the specialized design that goes in our particular guild system, which is that guilds advance, that guilds are a living, breathing entity, much like your character, that you're able to get with your friends and communicate with them. So all of those, all that base functionality is going in for our alpha.
For alpha 1,
Yeah. And then beyond that, you guys have been working on housing and node plot systems and how that is going to work.
Yeah, so there's
It's a whole
multiple.
other thing.
Yeah, it's a big system. So there's houses that are physically in the world that you can purchase, and then it gives you access to services in the house. It could be crafting stations, storage, like an extra bank. And then there's, of course, things like freeholds where you would have a deed and you'd be able to construct a house. Mayors can construct businesses within the nodes. It could be a guild hall, it could be a smithy, it could be a tavern. So all these systems need to be coded, and then we need to support the tools for art and design so that they can preview it and iterate quickly on it.
Yeah, and
But
that goes.
it's fun. It's really exciting.
Goes right into the other stuff that you guys are furthering, which is furthering the node functionality in regards to elections and mayors and how that system works.
Yeah. So when a node levels up, there's a voting process that takes place, and so we need to support that so players can then vote for the mayor, and the mayor will administer the node. So they're able to set the tax rate. They're able to send caravans to other nodes.
Establish relations.
Exactly.
treaties.
So kind of finalizing that system that we've already started and kind
Yes.
of like working out those things,
Right.
which goes into the caravan system, which you guys are kind of doing your final polishing touches on the engineering side of that as well.
Exactly. For Alpha 1, it's critical that we have
That whole system working.
right, the whole system. You can pick which node you're sending your caravan to, and off it goes. And then players obviously can
Drive.
They can drive those. They can raid those. You can sign up as a defender for it. There's quests that are going to be available related to caravans, and then in later stages of development, we'll have that system on the water for
And then
ships.
the final thing you wanted to talk about that you guys have been working on this month is the event system and how that works.
Yeah, so design has asked us to expand our event system, and events occur based on things that go on in the node. So if the node levels up or delevels, particularly leveling up, it could attract the attention of more powerful entities, dragons, ogres, raiders, who knows. And then these entities might attack the town. You may have bandits going after the caravans that are coming out of the town as a result of this. So we're expanding all the different variants of what can occur with an event, and then giving design the ability to sort of say, when do these happen? Are they random? Choose from a list, etc. Give them full control.
Important thing about those types of events is, I know in the past we've talked about those events attacking specific buildings and or services that the node has to provide, which provides the citizens the incentive to defend so that they don't lose out on those services.
Exactly.
Not all of those things are contained within the walls of the city. I don't remember where I was talking about this. I think it was in the PI meeting the other day. But a question came up in the PI meeting, which I'll share with you guys, is with regards to naval content. When nodes spawn, are they spawning on the coast, and does that provide harbors and whatnot? As nodes develop, right, there are points of interest hooks that exist out in the world outside of that node, obviously, that develop with the node's development.
Right.
And for example, a node that is close to the water obviously is going to have a hook that reaches out to where the harbor might exist for that particular node. So you may have a sea event that arises where the Kraken or something comes and attacks that harbor, and citizens have to go and defend that particular resource, that particular service, or else they might lose out on the effects of that service for a period of time should they not do so. So expanding the kind of capabilities of that event system to incorporate all of those different points of interest, not just specifically the node itself, because back in Alpha 0, that event system was kind of contained to within that particular node and not the points of interest around it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna be a lot. And then also figuring out the priority of like what notifications do you see versus not, right?
That's right. If there's an event, we have to let the players know about it so that they can react and they can have fun.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much, McPhee.
Thank
was a
you,
lot.
McPhee.
Thank you for
My
bringing
pleasure.
us
Woo.
some engineering video action.
Yes, first
Next
video.
time,
Awesome.
show us the programming of it.
Yeah.
He
Wall of
always-
text.
Anytime I ask, he
So
just sends me
exciting.
ones and zeros
That's
whenever
right.
I ask for
110001.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to be
Thanks.
bringing back Jeffrey Bard, of course, and your lovely community manager, Sarah Flanagan, aka the Toast, Lieutenant Toast. And I will see you all next year. So thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Sarah's shirt is amazing, just so you know.
Well, earlier you went up to someone else and you're like, we were all supposed to wear ugly sweaters today. Sarah wore an ugly sweater. And I was like,
It's in the category of ugly, but it is not ugly.
This is my,
It is not
this is
ugly.
my best sweater.
It's
No, I'm just
not
kidding.
ugly. It's
I'm just
gorgeous.
kidding. Hi, everyone. Greetings.
Hello. Oh, you
Welcome.
have
I
a
do.
pretty sweater.
Thanks. I figured you would
cool.
like it because
I
it's
love
space
it.
and a
It's
cat.
Space and cats.
That's
And
an
it's
extremely
handsome.
large cat or a very small Santa.
I like to imagine it is both.
Oh.
Very small Santa on a very large cat.
Oh.
Through space.
That's
over time.
cool.
I have a different sweater for Friday
Oh.
too, for our
Great.
ugly sweater competition on Friday. That one lights up.
Oh
That's
my
a fair
god,
warning.
I've already lost the competition. This is great.
So,
Thanks, Sarah.
without further ado, thank you guys all for joining us for another live stream. I asked you guys to share your questions with us in advance, like we do every month before the live stream. So thank you guys for putting those together for us. There was a great forum thread on there. I actually took some time last night, since some of you had asked questions that had been asked before. I went in there and took some time to post some references and let you guys know what the answers were for things that we have already answered, so we don't cover them today. You still know what those answers are. And if you did post a lot of questions, we probably did skip over them. So next time, if you want to make sure your question is covered, keep it short, keep it simple, just post one and we'll get it covered.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Yay.
All right. Magic Man from the forums asks, will the main story quests treat us as the one hero or acknowledge through dialogue that we are part of the bigger picture?
So we want the players to feel like they're the movers and shakers in the world for the most part. We aren't going to be treating it as like a single player, massively multiplayer online RPG.
Mhm.
We're going to acknowledge the fact that you are part of a bigger picture and that you're not necessarily the one, but you're the what?
Supamamo.
Yes. Single player massively great. That's great. But we do want to acknowledge that there are other players in the world and that you are not the only player in the world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
it's
think-
a collective ensemble cast.
Generally, our overarching narrative will be from the perspective of you as the returning children of Vera, so to
Right.
speak, right? And not so much as like, you will
You
save the
individually
day!
are
You
the
are the
single
Only
one.
you can do it!
Along with these tens of thousands
Right.
of other
Yeah.
Who are also
Exactly.
standing around the
Oh,
one
you created an
NPC.
alt? Well, he can do it too!
people. He is the one.
Yeah, the one of many.
Yes. All right, cool. Thank you, Magic Man. That was a great first question. All right, Jalon asks, how is the move going? Are you all settled in the new studio?
We are not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
That is a little bit of a process, and it will be coming to fruition over the next few months.
Yep, I think we covered that one earlier as well. Cymex asks, with the new backend infrastructure, does internal testing show that 10,000 player servers can still be achieved, or will you need to dial that number back a bit? And I
No.
think you kind of
No,
covered
we
that
have not.
earlier.
I
You
got to
showed
that
the
point yet.
bots
Yeah,
earlier.
we have not dialed that back yet. As a matter of fact, we've been dialing that forward.
Yeah.
Based on the bot testing.
Yes,
and the stuff that we
based
saw.
on our internal stress testing using both bots and simulating connections to the server, simulating players like you just saw there.
For sure.
All go to further solidify our plans for player population.
Yep.
And people were mentioning when they saw, in particular, that video earlier, they're like, well, that's just people running around. What happens when it's people with all their spells and
So,
abilities
little
and
known
pets
fact,
and everything?
actually, the most taxing information on the server side is actually
Is
movement
position,
data. because it's something
You're
you are
given what your
constantly
XYZ
doing,
in time.
and it has to be represented to other players in real time.
Every time.
So
You go,
that is like, I don't know, 85% of the network traffic is
Yeah.
really movement position. So it's actually one of the most important components.
That's a great stat. That's some
I don't know,
fun.
I
That's
just-
fun making the sausage behind the scenes
Yes.
for people who understand that actually what is the most network intensive
Yes.
is your location point in time. All right. Damocles asks, is it 64 classes or 8 base classes with 8 subclasses? Meaning, do all of the subclasses share the same base abilities? So, for example, if I'm a tank mage or a fighter mage, Are the mage abilities the same for that tank mage or the fire mage?
The mage augment is the same grouping, but the way it affects the active skill, you only receive active skills from your primary archetype, and then it gets augmented by your secondary choice.
And those augments are different for each class.
Right.
So it is different. A mage affects a warrior differently than a mage affects.
Right, but the augment school is exactly, and it will yield a different effect because the base active skill is different. But the parent augment is the same, like teleportation, elemental. So like you take the mage groupings of augments. You have teleportation, you have the elements, right? Those two things get applied to different active skills based on your base subclass. Yeah,
with different consequences.
Exactly.
Got it. All right. Gubstep asks, in Apocalypse, we saw the use of AWS, Amazon Web Services, servers to dynamically spin up game server instances based on player count. Moving forward with the MMO, will you continue to use AWS or eventually invest in your own server racks?
We will be using AWS.
All right.
As of this moment.
All right. That's our plan until plan changes.
Until plan changes.
Correct. All right. Wolo asks, you have told us before that gathering resources exist more as a cluster, such as mining from a vein of ore versus from a small rock. Could you give us another example of this, such as for wood cutting?
So it depends on the resource type, right? Okay. Some resources are obviously going to lend themselves to having more of a pool of available resource that over time will be whittled down until nothing exists, and then it will randomly spawn again at one of its locations across the world. Obviously, certain resources like wood are going to be like a single tree that can be chopped down, perhaps, and then will respawn later at a later time.
Right.
So it just depends on the type of resources.
And there will still be this idea of clustering,
right?
But
the other cool thing is there's moving resources as well. So like herds for wool, wild wool or something, right? Where you have basically an interactable herd of animals or something that you can go up to and collect wool from, and they'll just be constantly moving around the world.
And over time, you'll see the sheep are shorn, and some of the sheep are shorn,
until there's just one sheep left, and he's just like, please
someone take my
I'm the last of my kind. I'm the last.
Or please
sheep.
Do. He's like the last kid that got picked.
I'm so hot. It's summer.
Right.
Oh my God, take this wool off.
Exactly. Please share me.
Right.
All right. Bounce asks, have you considered adding treasure hunt events created by players? So I think there's some element to like treasure hunty stuff, but not necessarily created by players.
We have not considered that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And we likely won't.
Okay. Ashon asks, could we get an end of the year progress report stating the accomplishments of the year?
We will in our creative director's letter.
There you go. Hydrilla asks, what is the plan to make questing immersive, especially as it relates to the open world, where you may see many other characters accomplishing the same thing? And I think the example that was given, which is like, I have to go kill Questy McBad Guy. I show up and there's 5 other corpses for Questy McBad Guy already there. And that doesn't make me feel as immersive. But I guess we did kind of cover this with the first one as well. Acknowledging that you were part of that bigger picture will help.
And we have some tech to do things to make sure that you're seeing what's relevant to you, and stuff that's relevant only to you are the things that you can see, and other people won't see those things.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Aston asks, will animations change depending on the race or subclass of the player?
Race?
Some animations will change.
Yeah, race would likely be. Subclass probably not.
Animations will generally be based on what weapon you're using.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we have like idols and stuff, which are different between genders and probably different between races and how big and small you are.
Exactly.
We do a lot of animation sharing though.
Okay. All right. Tealf asks, will you let us know what tier of freehold structure the skins we purchase will replace?
There will be an article in the future coming soon, trademark, that will kind of go over the freehold system in general and give you an idea of how these structures interact with one another, what the progression table is for some of these structures, the types of structures that exist, and how they correlate to the cosmetics that have been available previously. So that's actually, right now I'm preparing that available. So I don't know when that's going to be available, but probably, beginning of next year.
Okay. Carefree Cactus asks, if one adds an elemental effect to their weapon, either through a spell or permanent buff from enchanting, will effects be applied to the weapon to show this? For example, if I add fire damage to my sword, is my sword now fiery looking or have flames coming off of it?
It is a thing that we can do. It is a thing that we will probably do in certain circumstances. But
Like, not everyone should be walking around with flaming swords necessarily.
that is a
And those flame effects might not be a persistent effect on the sword per se, but rather a rider effect on the hit effect that is applied to a creature. So, definitely the effects system is being constructed in a way that represents all the different types of both subtypes as well as enhancements that can create, these rider effects that go along with the primary effect.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our weapons are going to have like their own emisses and their own particle effects that are associated with them that kind of make them iconic and beautiful. And I don't know that we want to necessarily get in the way of that.
Right.
Even though adding a fire effect to my sword is very cool, we want to make sure that the swords all don't end up looking the same at the end, because the particle effects tend to overwhelm the look of a weapon.
Right.
So,
one thing I liked in some of the MMOs that I played is the enchantment system that revolves around weapons and or armor. Glow effects usually get confined to that type of system,
stuff.
right? Exactly.
Yep.
So
if you know it's glowing, it's more powerful.
Exactly, and that's good not just from a visual aesthetic standpoint, but also from a threat assessment standpoint. When you're going up against enemies on the field or whatever, you can kind of be aware. Oh, that dude has a red glowing weapon. That's like a plus 16 weapon.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's like, I'm gonna stay away from that guy, or I'm gonna target him. It's like,
exactly.
So that you may see representation for glow effects with regards to the enchantment system.
Okay. Ventharian asks, will mounts be auto-dismounted or unsummoned upon entering a closed area, such as a cave or building? Or will they be mountable in such places?
more than likely, I don't know. We've been going back and forth on this.
They'll probably be mountable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to ride your bear through the tavern?
Well, if it fits through the door.
Fits through the door.
But yeah, I think
mount
generally
size.
when you're considering the open world type of environment, that goes hand in hand with the ability to kind of take your mounts and or pets within the areas that you're going in. Now, if there are some instanced events, we may want to, or if we want to inhibit kind of the ability for the player to go through that area, we might turn off the flag for mounts there. But
yeah, we've got the system in place. We can do it right now, but it's there are knockoff effects on both sides. So right now we're erring towards permissiveness.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing to note, I noticed somebody just said mounts blocking
doorways
paths and doorways and stuff.
Yeah.
There will be a
Exactly.
a collision system in place that prevents those things from permanently blocking. So as you push up against the character, they can potentially move forward. And
Or you just slowly push them off the cliff.
Right. It's like,
over
hey,
time.
move.
Over time, ever so slowly.
Ever so slowly. I've totally done that to people before.
Yes.
Rygand asks, how far in advance will announcements of world bosses or world events be broadcast to give players an opportunity to log in and participate? So, bam, world boss event or world event's going to happen, and the notification triggers in chat or in the game, and maybe through the mobile app or something to let people know. How far in advance then are we hoping to give that?
It depends on the event.
Yeah.
I mean,
some events we want to sneak up on you,
Yeah.
and some events we are going to need everybody to participate in.
It also kind of depends on the ability for there's obviously risk versus reward systems. Part of that risk is player losing stuff like a house in a siege potentially, or their citizenship if the node gets destroyed, or a castle, whatever. Those types have long tails of notification where we want to send the player, hey, in 5 days a siege is going to occur.
You
There's
could
a lot of
lose
stuff
your
at
house.
stake.
Exactly. Whereas other things, are kind of more moment to moment, like Jeff said. So
Like a
it
world
really
boss.
just depends on the event. Obviously, we do want to inform players though.
For sure. All right. Kaisaki asks, UE or Unreal Engine 4.24 has been released with a new hair and fur rendering and simulation feature. Will Ashes of Creation take advantage of this?
Well, our artists are always very up to date with the latest and greatest, so I'm sure they'll be looking into it and seeing whether or not our current solution should be replaced by that. But we're always looking forward to the new tech that comes out of the market, including tech from Unreal.
And just as a little caveat, sometimes when things come out at the very beginning, they're not quite ready for prime turnaround time, especially for a game like ours, right?
Yes.
Single player games are less intense.
Have more leeway.
Yes.
And there's a lot more leeway in what kind of technologies you can adopt. We have to be a little bit more careful about that because we need to make sure that all of our systems are optimized for the amount of people that we have. So,
and a lot of those things that you're describing, or excuse me, that was particularly this question, aren't made with the thought of an MMO in mind.
Right.
For sure.
So we'll evaluate everything. We love technology. We love trying to find better, more effective, more awesome ways of doing things. So, I mean, it's something that we constantly do. Every time Unreal comes out with something new, we always evaluate it. So,
For sure.
All right. Burn the Fern asks, will Intrepid consider an incentivized bug bounty system after release for exploits or vulnerabilities, maybe with unique in-game cosmetics or titles as the rewards?
Absolutely. We have talked about this in the past. You know, we want the type of relationship where players feel comfortable bringing to light, exploits and or bugs that are in the game with the, foreknowledge that they can benefit from doing so. So it definitely creates a very nice rapport between the company and the player if they know that, hey, their hard work will be rewarded in that regard.
All right. Selzar asks, if sieges are every 4th week, will in-game seasons rotate on the same cadence so we always see the same season every siege period? So like siege is always happening during winter because winter is always on the 4th week of the month. Calendar, if that makes sense.
yeah, that totally makes sense.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. It's something we'll have to, as seasons come online and kind of decide how we want the pace of the game to feel, right? And what indicators we want from the environment to talk to that. It's a really cool idea, but that's not something that we've specifically thought about in terms of...
Also, it's important to notice that, there are 5 castles that are in the game, and they exist in different regions, and regions have different climates. So what may be winter in the north is summer in the south, perhaps those castles are contained to a specific season for each siege, but you'll have a varying degree of experience across the different types of castles.
Gotcha. All right. Gimlog asks, how will the swap over for increasing or decreasing a node level look for mobs? Do old mobs just pop out of existence and new ones appear, or something else?
So we've talked about this a couple different ways. More than likely what we will have is the existing mob base will just live on until they are killed, or there's nobody there. And then, as that population is removed, the new population comes in. So it'll be fairly organic. We don't want that experience of oh my god, the level just changed, right? So the mobs that you're attacking right now will probably stay there. Once you kill those mobs, they'll be replaced by the new ones.
Got it. All right. Mayhem asks, when leaderboards go up, are we able to see our Season 1 stats like games played and wins? So will there be historical data in leaderboards?
There will not be historical data. The leaderboards have begun collecting data as of yesterday. I believe it was yesterday was the update, right?
I believe it was yesterday.
So as of yesterday, all stats that are will be tracked on the leaderboards, but not previously.
All right. Bob's Your Uncle asks, what happens if a freehold is placed too near to a village and the village expands? Will the freehold disappear, or will it be so that you can't put a freehold in a place that is part of that node's expansion possibility?
Yeah, you will not be able to place a freehold within the footprint of the maximum possible expansion of the node.
Okay, cool. So confirming that part of it. All right. Paradox asks, if your main tank/tank gets sent to bed by mom mid-raid. This was from the question.
This is great.
Can your mage/tank, A, hold aggro, and B, stay alive as tank for the group by swapping the abilities they use? So based on their secondary alone, would they be able to tank?
That would be pretty rough. A mage tank would be pretty rough. A tank mage would have a much easier time.
Got it.
Those are kind of the secondary tank-ish classes. You will be able to do some tanking on some bosses for some time, but in terms of being able to replace a main tank...
Yeah, that's a pretty complicated, obviously,
question.
There's a lot of variables we don't know about there. It's going to come down to equipment and stuff. But generally, if you're looking at performance indicator, like Jeff said, primary class as tank is going to be predominantly what's capable of encountering equitable level experiences as a tank and fulfilling that role with a wide variety of acceptable parameters based on subclass selection. And there's also going to be specific niche tanking that is available, whether evasion, magic tank, physical tank, control effect tank, those types of things. So we want to provide a wide diversity of available options, so that we can mitigate as much as possible what content you're facing and not having a meta for all content, so to speak. But generally, as a mage primary, it would be kind of difficult.
It'll be more of an off tank.
Yeah.
So there will be some niche situations where they could probably function as a main tank,
right?
But
like a lot of games I've played,
they probably can't run you through a whole raid.
Right. A lot of games I've played in the past, I tried to tank as a mage. Sometimes it didn't work out, and sometimes it didn't work out.
Yes. Glass cannon life.
Right.
Oh, it's a hard time. All right, we've got just a couple more questions here from the community before we wrap it up for today, or this year, actually. I love saying that. We're going to wrap it up for this year.
Last live stream
of the year.
Last time we see you this year. So Doran Live asks, will different timed or triggered events within a node be able to occur at the same time, such as a siege and a mayoral change? And if so, how will that look? So I think a siege, like really more than anything else.
Yeah, because when a siege happens, sort of locks down a lot
down
of the parts of.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say the other thing is that the siege declaration window appears for so when a player completes the necessary tasks to achieve an item that allows for declaration, and they lay that declaration down, they're provided a window of available times. And usually we're going to structure certain events like the mayoral change with outside of that window of time. The available window of time is going to be indicative of the region in which that server is located. So you'll have NA servers, you'll have EU servers, so on, right? So NA servers might see available siege options when the declaration occurs between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. Pacific or something, right? And the mayoral change tick occurs at noon, so it's outside of that window per se. So we'll be able to avoid
new mayor right before siege.
Right, exactly.
Ooh.
Well, there you go. But also the other thing is the mayoral change. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. We'll see what happens with the new mayor.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the new mayor. You never know. All right. Last couple questions here. Argentum401 asks, are you going to implement a sandbox mode where players could test out different skills and classes? You're playing it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Oh my gosh, that was.
You're gonna play more of it.
That was great.
But yes.
We haven't really talked about that.
Yeah. You mean like more specifically narrowing in on playing?
Yeah, like it's something that would take not inconsiderable amount of design time to do. It might be something that we do later on down the road, just so people can try out different builds and stuff.
I mean, we've talked about Alpha 2 persisting as the public test server, right? So, that type of experience where it's more specifically catered to the MMORPG classes and mechanics, I think would occur post Alpha 2 as that is the persistent public test server.
For sure. Okay. Will asks, have there been any further iterations to combat since the last update for Apocalypse? And that was not yesterday. This question was written before yesterday's update. And if so, what changes have you decided to make?
So in terms of Apocalypse, no. We've obviously changed a lot for Siege.
It's still Apocalypse.
It's still Apocalypse, but it's also a different game mode that lives alongside of it. So not for Apocalypse, but for Siege. It's
not for Battle Royale,
not for BR,
but for
but
Siege.
Right.
That's what I was saying.
Sorry,
my
mouth.
That's okay.
My mouth.
It's a little bit difficult to enumerate that, right? Because it's a class-based system. Mana is a lot more important in this system for different classes.
Yes. Confirmed.
Managing your abilities is a lot more important. It is a lot closer to sort of the MMO experience than the BR was. So in that case, yes, we have changed it quite a bit. But the overall feel isn't terribly different in terms of like the moment to moment. I'm using my sword here. I'm using a fireball here. That's all relatively the same.
But there's things like you'll see one dash, but you won't be able to do 3 dashes in a row.
Right.
Like if you want more mobility, you may want to go with a ranger jump
right.
spell.
Exactly.
Like not everyone gets all the
everything.
Same.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to spec into specifically PMO. Okay, last question here is from Rima596, who asks, will summoners have the ability to equip their pets with items?
Summoners will not, but battle pets and mounts will have the ability to have equipped items. The role that items play with mounts and combat pets is adopted by the skill set and passives that are available in the skill tree of the summoner for their summon specifically. So equipment is primarily delegated just to mounts and combat pets, whereas summoners use their active skills and their passive skills to augment the abilities of their summons.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you guys all for submitting your questions again on the forums.
Thanks, you
Those were
guys.
awesome. And thank you for joining us for this live stream as well. Big thank you to all of our guests we had on today. We had Jeff on. We had Chris Atkins on. Who else do we have on?
We had Kevin Mcpherson.
We had Kevin Mcpherson on as well. So thank them as well for joining us too. Some final reminders here. Those Ryman Regal items are now available in the shop if you want to take a look at those and get your festive frosty season on and ready to go. Like we mentioned earlier, it's the end of the year. We got lots of holidays coming up, so we'll probably be doing a bit of a holiday break. So you may not see some of us around as we visit our families and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. We hope you guys have a great time with your families too.
As a final reminder, you know, everybody here at Intrepid Studios appreciates our amazing community. We love you guys, and we appreciate you guys, you know, supporting the game. And we hope everybody has an awesome end of 2019 and an amazing 2020. We're going to be with you every step of the way. We have a lot of cool announcements coming up next year and some pretty exciting dates. So stick around.
Yeah. We'll see you. Check out the links below if you want to follow us, and we'll be posting the VOD later today in case you missed any of today's stream. We'll see you next year.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.